unicorns, and welcome back to another video. Just in case you are new, my name is Natalie and this is my Cafecito y Pan Dulce YouTube channel where we have coffee talks about anything and everything. For today's video, as you can see by the title of the video, I'm going to be talking about 5 things I learned from my student teaching. So to give you guys a little bit of context, I was teaching or student teaching in a middle school, a charter school also. I was teaching 7th and 8th grade science classes, so physical science for 7th graders and life science for 8th graders. During my student teaching, I had a few assignments. I had to design a whole unit plan and I had to have taught it and been able to reflect on it by the end of the semester. Design just daily lesson plans for whenever my professor would come to visit me. I had 5 visits from my professor and we would get evaluated on different things like classroom management or professional development and a few other things on there, but I just can't remember off the top of my head. So it was only one semester. It was from late August to early December. And it was in a school that was pretty diverse. So I think that's enough context, but let's go ahead and get right into the 5 things that I learned. So the first thing I learned is probably that having a relationship with your mentor teacher is very important if you want to have a good student teaching experience. You need to be able to talk to your mentor teacher about anything, and I mean anything when it comes to like even little things like wardrobe or things like, oh, do you mind if I implement this discipline strategy in today or this week of class. I think that it's just very important for you guys to always be communicating and always be reflecting together, because your mentor teacher, whether you guys are very similar or very different, has a lot of knowledge, and sometimes it's important to look at different strategies and not just your own perspective and strategies, because that's the way that you'll grow, is by being uncomfortable. This is also their classroom, so you and your mentor teacher having a very positive relationship is extremely important for you to be able to respectfully lead and take over the classroom, because it's not easy. You'll like realize it once you start teaching by yourself that it's not easy to give up control of your classroom. I mean, this is your classroom, you have your strategies, and you're letting some student that knows very little about teaching just come into your classroom and try to practice all these different strategies when they have no idea what works and what doesn't, or what will work and what won't work. Having a positive relationship with all your coworkers and all the people that you're going to be working with, because you can find mentorship in even other teachers, and you can find mentorship in even like the principal or vice principal. It's just very important to consider and make sure that you're having a positive influence and trying your best to build that relationship with your mentor teacher and the culture of the school, just the whole school in general. The second thing that I learned was a lot about classroom management. We all need to figure out what works for us and what doesn't. For me, like, sending a student to the principal's office is like my last resort, and I have other strategies put in place. Like, I really believe in giving students a choice. Like, if there's a student that's off task, then I could be like, hey, like, I noticed that you're off task. What would work better for you? Would it work better for you to like stay here and really work on staying on task, or would you prefer to go to the desk next to my desk and work over there, or go work over there next to this other student? I learned different ways to like get my students' attention, because I'm 5 feet tall. I use a step stool in the classroom to get students' attention, and you just learn so much about yourself and what you're really comfortable with. I think there was one situation with one student, and I apologized to the student right after, but I had my professor visiting me and I was super nervous because almost every student teacher's weakness is classroom management, and mine definitely was. I would consider it one of like the things that I'm really working on now and I'm improving on. It's still one of my weaknesses, but it's something that I've improved a lot in. And I like, I was really nervous about her looking at my classroom management because she had been saying like, hey, it wasn't very like good, and so I was like, okay, like I'll do my research and figure out what I can do to make it better. And the strategy that I used in the moment was not the right strategy, and I was really, really nervous. It just wasn't me. I told the student that like maybe if they were being disrespectful, I would write them a blue slip, which is like sending them to the principal's office, and that's just not me. But in the moment I was just so nervous that that's what came out of my mouth. And then like I saw the students say something like, oh my gosh, like that was so mean, and because they knew me at this point and they knew that that like wasn't something that I would do. And I immediately apologized to the student. But yeah, so you'll just learn a lot about yourself and how you really want to manage your classroom. But of course, this is something that every teacher will always be working on. You'll never be like 100% professional or like at that maximum 10 level of classroom management. There will always be situations that will come up. There will always be a chance to learn. And I guess that brings me to my third thing that I learned, was that self-reflection is really, really important during your student teaching. It's the only way that you're really going to be able to learn, because if you're not self-reflecting, you're not going to be able to improve. If you're not self-reflecting, your professors and your mentor teacher and everyone that's observing you won't see any improvement. First, for every lesson or for every time I would teach, I would write student objectives, at least 1 or 2 student objectives, and if I felt like the students didn't meet that objective, then I would self-reflect that way, or like I would self-reflect using my objective. And another way that I would reflect is just with student relationships. So if I felt like something was a little awkward with the student that day, then I would try to build a relationship with them or try to figure out like what was going on. And or if like I felt uncomfortable practicing a new strategy that I was going to do, like maybe like a new way of getting students' attention, if I felt uncomfortable doing that, I would self-reflect on it and think about like, what could I do next time that could be a little bit different. It's important for you to do, and you can do it various ways. I self-reflected a lot with new strategies to implement into the classroom. I used professional development days and meetings to self-reflect and kind of like think about like, oh, this is a new strategy that this teacher is using, maybe I can try to implement it into my classroom. I would self-reflect by watching other teachers on YouTube. I would self-reflect with the objectives and just a lot of self-reflection. Okay, I had a lot of time too because I worked in a factory at that time, and I would just like package medical supplies. So while I was packaging, I was always thinking about my classroom and what went well and what didn't and what I can improve on and all of that. It's very, very important to do. The fourth thing that I learned, and this is a little one, but it's a very important one in my opinion, is to do your best to greet your students at the door every single day. And this is something that I learned from my mentor teacher, because he does this like religiously. He would stand at the door and greet them, whether it was just with a hello, a high five, a fist bump, or even a hand, like a shake of the hand, a professional handshake. He would do his best to greet them every single day, and I think that's something very important. It contributes a lot to like how you're introducing the day. So like my routine, I guess from what I learned from my student teacher, would be like to greet my students at the door every single day, or at least do my best to do that, and then hand them any warm-up that they may need or remind them of the warm-up that's on the board. It's just such a great way to just like start the class and start the day for them, knowing that their teacher is prepared and that they are ready to go. And I don't know, it's just, I really liked that idea, and it's something that I would really, really like to implement when I have my classroom. The last thing I learned, and I think it's probably one of the most important ones, and it's one of the biggest reasons I went into teaching. You are teaching many adults. You are teaching the future of like this country, of your city, of the culture that you're in. You are teaching human beings. You are teaching people from a variety of different backgrounds, they have a variety of different lives. You are not teaching robots, okay? You're teaching many adults, and it's such a privilege to be able to do this. And it really is a privilege, because you're instilling so many lessons, so many like pieces of advice, and so many different ways of thinking into these mini adults. You are just pouring all this information, whether it's related to like life advice or related to a specific concept that you're trying to teach, or maybe a controversial like way of recycling or something like that. Like, you get to actually teach the future. Like, 10 years from now, that student might be like, hey, like, this is the teacher that inspired me and told me, like, yeah, you can be anything you want to be in the world. And I know that sometimes that's like really related to like elementary school teachers, but I think it's something that secondary teachers do a lot too, and should be doing a lot too. Because, I don't know, I guess like my favorite thing and the thing I learned about the most was the students, and how important it is to build relationships with them, and how important it is to recognize that these are all different human beings in one classroom, and you're trying to teach them some crazy concept that may not help them 10 years from now, you know, or that they may not remember 10 years from now. I think that you learn, like, the biggest thing that you can learn from being a teacher is recognizing that you're teaching people and you're not teaching robots. So you need to implement different ways of teaching them. It's very, very important to get to know them, and it's such a privilege to get to know them, and it's very important for you to make an effort in building relationships with them, because you may naturally have things in common with a specific student, but you may not naturally have things in common with another student. Like, maybe you have to make an effort to watch a TV show that they watch just so that you guys have something to talk about the next day. And you're an important person in their life. You need to have a positive impact on their life, and maybe you're the only positive impact on their life. And I don't know, it's such a privilege to be able to do that, and it's such an important thing to learn. And that's probably my favorite thing that I learned in my student teaching. Just that the students are so incredible, and I don't even know why I call them students, that these people are so incredible, that it's so incredible that you get to just hang out with mini adults every single day. I don't know. I really liked that about my student teaching and about teaching in general. So those are the 5 things. I know they're pretty broad. I'm sure there will be more teaching videos to come once I learn a little bit more, and I can have a video about classroom management and what I learned specifically for that from my student teaching. So maybe that'll be a whole different video. But I hope that you guys enjoyed it, found it helpful, and maybe share it with any other student teachers that you might know, or any friend that you might know that might be student teaching. I wish you all the best experience with your student teaching, and that you all get to learn so much. And I will see you guys next week for another video. Bye!